She said I made her feel safe. I believed her. I left everything behind: my condo, my friends, even my kids. And now I'm sitting here in a rented room staring at an empty wallet. She took it all, and I don't even know if she ever loved me. Maybe I was just her ticket, her project, her fool. I landed in Manila with one suitcase, a sore back, and a heart I thought was dead. At 60, after my divorce from Linda went through, I figured I was done. 26 years of marriage ended when she walked out with her yoga instructor and half my pension. "You never listened to me, Jim," she said on her way out the door. "You never really heard what I was saying." Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been sleepwalking through my own life for decades. But Maria changed everything. We met on a dating site called International Love, one of those places where American men go to find Filipino wives. I know how that sounds. Trust me, I know. But her profile wasn't like the others. No bikini photos or talk about wanting to come to America. Just this beautiful woman with kind eyes who worked as a nurse in Quezon City. "Hello, Jim," she wrote first. "I saw you like fishing. My father taught me to fish when I was little. Maybe you could teach me again." Something about that message, so simple, so genuine, made me think maybe I wasn't too old to try again. We talked every night for 4 months, video calls that stretched past midnight. She told me about her patience, about taking care of her elderly mother, about dreams she'd put aside to help her family. I told her about fixing air conditioners for 30 years, about my kids who never called, about the empty house that echoed when I walked through it alone. "You sound tired," she said one night, her face soft in the laptop light, "like you need someone to take care of you for once." That's when I knew I was falling. Hard. When I told her I wanted to visit, she got quiet. "Are you sure? It's very far. Very different here." "I'm sure," I said. "I want to meet you. Really meet you." She smiled then, the kind of smile that reaches your eyes. "Okay, but promise me something. Don't expect too much. I'm just a simple girl from the province," I promised. But deep down I was already expecting everything. She met me at Ninoy Aquino Airport with a small bouquet of sampaguita flowers, white and fragrant, like jasmine. She was even more beautiful in person, petite, with long black hair and this shy smile that made my chest tight. She wore a simple blue dress and flip-flops, nothing fancy, but she looked perfect to me. "Welcome to the Philippines, Jim," she said, standing on her toes to kiss my cheek. Her English was careful but clear. "Are you tired from the flight?" "Not anymore," I said, and meant it. The ride to her apartment took 2 hours through traffic that would terrify most Americans. Jeepneys and motorcycles weaving between cars, vendors walking between lanes selling water and snacks. But Maria held my hand the whole time, pointing out landmarks, telling me stories about growing up here. "That's where I went to school," she said, indicating a concrete building with bars on the windows. Very different from American schools, I think. Her apartment was small, 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with a couch that had seen better days. But it was clean and decorated with family photos and religious icons. "It's not much," she said, suddenly self-conscious. "Maybe you expected something nicer." "It's perfect," I said, and I meant that too. We spent that first week exploring Manila together. She showed me Rizal Park, Intramuros, the markets in Divisoria where she haggled for better prices in rapid Tagalog while I stood there useless but charmed. "You don't need to buy me things," she said when I kept reaching for my wallet. "I just want to spend time with you." But I wanted to buy her things. A new purse, dinner at nice restaurants, gifts for her mother who lived in Bataan province. "My family will love you," Maria said one evening as we sat on Manila Bay watching the sunset. "You're so kind, so generous." "When can I meet them?" I asked. "Soon," she promised. "But first, let me make sure you really want to stay." Stay. The word hung between us like a question. What if I did stay? Would that make you happy? She looked at me then with such sadness I thought I'd said something wrong. "Jim, you have a life in America. A good life. Why would you give that up for someone like me?" "Because someone like you makes me want to be alive again." That night, she cried when we made love. Happy tears, she said, but something in her eyes looked more like grief. "I need to tell you something," Maria said on my last day. We were sitting in her living room, my suitcase packed by the door. "About my family, about money." My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. The ask. The reason she'd been so nice to a broken-down American twice her age. My mother is sick. Diabetes. The medication is expensive, and the hospital bills. She trailed off, not meeting my eyes. How much do you need? No, Jim. I'm not asking for money. I'm telling you why I can't come to America with you, why this has to end here. What are you talking about? You'll go home and find someone better. Someone your age. Someone who doesn't have so many problems. Maria, look at me. When she finally did, her eyes were red. I don't want someone better. I want you. And if your mother needs help, we'll figure it out together. You don't understand. The bills are so much. Hundreds of thousands of pesos. I could never pay you back. I did the math in my head. Hundreds of thousands of pesos was maybe $10,000 or $15,000. I had that much in my savings account. Had a lot more, actually. What if I moved here instead? I said. What if I sold my house and came back? You would do that? Leave everything? Everything I'm leaving behind is just stuff, Maria. You're the first real thing I've felt in years. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, My mother would like to meet you first. Before we make any big decisions. Of course. When? Next month? If you come back next month, I'll take you to Bataan. You can see where I grew up. Meet my family. See if you really want this life. I kissed her then, tasting salt from her tears. I already know I want this life. But flying back to Florida, I wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life or the best decision I'd ever made. I sold my house in 3 weeks. A quick sale to a cash buyer who didn't mind the dated kitchen or the crack in the driveway. My kids thought I'd lost my mind. Dad, you barely know this woman. My son David said when I told him my plans. What if she's just after your money? Then I'll deal with that when it happens, I said. But what if she's not? What if this is my chance to actually live instead of just existing? You could live here. Find someone here. Join a club or something. Sarah chimed in over video call. There are plenty of nice women in Florida. But they didn't understand. I'd tried dating in Florida. Coffee with divorced women who talked about their ex-husbands the whole time. Dinner with widows who showed me pictures of their dead spouses. Everyone was carrying so much baggage, including me. With Maria, I felt light. Like I could be the man I used to be before life wore me down. I wired $20,000 to Maria's account for her mother's medical bills. You don't have to do this, she said when I called to tell her. I know, I want to. I will pay you back, every peso. Maria, we're going to be family. Family doesn't keep score. When I landed back in Manila 6 weeks later, she was waiting with the same shy smile and a small suitcase of her own. Ready to meet my mother? She asked. Ready for anything, I said. And I was, or I thought I was. The bus ride to Bataan took 4 hours through mountain roads that twisted like ribbons. Maria slept against my shoulder while I watched the landscape change from city sprawl to rice fields to jungle. It was beautiful in a way Florida never was, green and alive and ancient. This is my home, Maria said when we pulled into a small town that looked like it had been built around a single main street. Her family's house was wooden, raised on stilts, with a corrugated metal roof and no air conditioning. But it was spotless, and every surface was covered with family photos and religious statues. Nane, this is Jim, Maria said, introducing me to her mother, a tiny woman who looked like an older version of Maria but thinner, frailer. Welcome to our home, she said in careful English, taking my hands in hers. They were soft but cold. Maria tells me you are very kind, man. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am. Please call me Tita Rose. We are family now. The next 3 days were like something out of a dream. Tita Rose cooked for me adobo, sinigang, fresh fish from the local market. Maria's cousins and neighbors stopped by to meet the American boyfriend. Kids played in the yard while adults sat on the porch talking and laughing. I couldn't understand most of the conversations, but it didn't matter. I felt included. Wanted. You see why I can't leave? Maria said one evening as we walked through the town center. This is my world. These people depend on me. What if we made a life here? Found a house nearby? You would do that? Live in a place like this? Why not? It's peaceful. Beautiful. And you're here. She stopped walking and turned to face me. Jim, I need to ask you something. Are you sure about this? About us? Because if we do this, if you move here and we get married, there's no going back. Your family will never understand. You'll be the American who married the Filipino nurse and moved to the province. Is that who you want to be? I thought about my empty house in Florida, about Sunday afternoons watching football alone, about grocery shopping for one and eating dinner in front of the TV. Yes, I said, that's exactly who I want to be. We found a house 20 minutes from Tita Rose, a 2-bedroom bungalow with a small garden and a view of the mountains. The owner wanted 1.2 million pesos for it, about $25,000. It's too much, Maria said. We can find something cheaper. But I'd already fallen in love with the place. Big windows that let in the morning light, a kitchen where Maria could cook, a porch where we could sit in the evenings and watch the world go by. Let's buy it, I said. Are you sure? That's a lot of money. Maria, I sold my house for $180,000. This is nothing. We paid cash. The seller seemed shocked when I counted out the bills. Most property sales here involved years of payments, Maria explained. But I wanted it settled. I wanted us to have a home. Now we need furniture, Maria said, already making lists. And appliances. The kitchen needs everything. I loved watching her plan our life together. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about painting the bedroom walls yellow, her favorite color, how she measured every corner and window, figuring out where things would go. We'll need a washing machine, she said, and a refrigerator. Maybe a motorcycle for getting around town. Whatever you want, I said, and I meant it. Money had never made me happy sitting in a bank account. But spending it on Maria, on our future together, felt like the best investment I'd ever made. We went shopping in Balanga, the provincial capital. Maria negotiated prices while I nodded and pulled out my wallet. A refrigerator, a washing machine, a queen-size bed. A motorcycle for her to use when I wasn't around. You're spoiling me, she said as we loaded everything into a delivery truck. I've never had such nice things. You deserve nice things, I said. You work so hard taking care of everyone else. Let someone take care of you for once. That night, in our new house with our new bed, Maria cried again when we made love. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing's wrong, she said. I'm just happy. I never thought I could be this happy. Neither did I. I need to go back to work, Maria said a month later. My leave is almost over. She'd taken vacation time to help me settle in, but now reality was calling. Her job was at a private hospital in Quezon City, a 12-hour shift 3 times a week. That's a long commute from here, I said. 4 hours each way. You'll be exhausted. I know. But we need the money. The house expenses, my mother's medications, your visa fees. She was right about the visa fees. Getting permanent residency in the Philippines was complicated and expensive. Lawyer fees, government processing, medical exams, thousands of dollars that I hadn't budgeted for. What if you didn't go back? I said. What if you stayed here with me? Jim, I can't quit my job. That's my career, my independence. But we don't need the money. I have enough saved for both of us. You have enough saved for now. But what about later? What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? I understood her fear. She'd spent her whole life working, supporting her family, being responsible. The idea of depending on someone else probably terrified her. Okay, I said, but maybe we can find something closer. A clinic here in Bataan, or a hospital in Balanga. Maybe. Let me think about it. But over the next few weeks, something changed. Maria started getting phone calls at odd hours. Work emergencies, she said. Scheduling changes. Overtime opportunities that paid too well to pass up. I might need to stay in the city a few nights a week, she said one evening. My friend Lucy has a place I can crash. It would save on travel time. I could get us an apartment there. For the nights you work. No, that's expensive, and I'd rather save the money for our future. Our future. I liked the sound of that. But I didn't like the idea of sleeping alone in our new house while she was in Manila. What if I came with you sometimes? Saw where you work, met your friends? Hospital policy. No visitors in the nurses' quarters. And you'd be bored, just sitting around while I work. She was probably right, but something about the way she said it made me uneasy, like she was giving me reasons instead of explaining realities. The first time Maria didn't come home when she was supposed to, I told myself not to worry. She'd said her shift might run late if they were short-staffed. Hospitals were unpredictable. But when her phone went straight to voicemail for 6 hours, I started pacing our empty house like a caged animal. "Sorry, love," she said when she finally called at midnight. "Crazy day. 3 nurses called in sick, and we had emergency surgeries all evening. I was worried sick. Your phone was off. Battery died. I forgot my charger." Her voice sounded strange, tired but also careful, like she was choosing her words. "Are you okay? You sound different." "Just exhausted. I'll be home tomorrow morning." But she didn't come home the next morning, or the morning after that. When she finally showed up, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled. "Maria, what's going on? You look terrible." "Thanks a lot," she snapped, then immediately softened. "Sorry, I'm just tired. This schedule is killing me. Maybe you should quit. We don't need the stress." "I told you, I can't quit. This job is all I have. You have me, you have us. For now. But what if things change? What if you decide this life isn't what you want?" "Why would I decide that?" She didn't answer, just kissed my cheek and went to take a shower. That night, I checked our bank account for the first time in weeks. We'd been spending freely: furniture, appliances, Maria's mother's medical bills, daily expenses. But I was shocked to see how much was gone, nearly $40,000 in 2 months. "Maria," I called. "Can you come here for a minute?" She emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair dripping. "What's wrong?" "The bank account. We've spent a lot more than I expected." "Have we?" "I haven't been keeping track. 40,000 in 2 months. That's more than some people make in a year." "Jim, moving is expensive. Setting up a household is expensive. And my mother's treatments. I'm not complaining. I just want to understand where it's all going. Do you want me to start keeping receipts? Making reports like I'm your employee?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" I didn't know how to explain the feeling in my gut. The sense that something was shifting between us. That the woman who'd cried happy tears in my arms was becoming someone harder, more distant. "Nothing," I said finally. "Forget I mentioned it." But I didn't forget, and I started paying attention. "Who keeps calling you?" I asked one evening when Maria's phone buzzed for the 5th time during dinner. "Work," she said without looking at the screen. "Can't you tell them you're off duty?" "Jim, I'm a nurse. People's lives depend on us being available. Even during your vacation days?" "I'm not on vacation. I'm just not scheduled for shifts." She answered the phone and walked to the other room, speaking in rapid Tagalog. I caught a few words I'd learned: Hindi meaning no, mamaya meaning later. When she came back, she looked stressed. "I have to go in tomorrow. Emergency surgery scheduled." "On your day off?" "The regular or nurse is sick. They need someone with experience. Can't someone else do it?" "Jim, please. This is my job. My responsibility." "I know, but what? You want me to choose between you and my career?" "I never said that. You didn't have to." The next morning, she packed a bag for what was supposed to be a one-night shift. But one night became 2. Then 3. When I called the hospital to check on her, they said no nurse Maria Santos worked there. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Maybe she's listed under a different name?" "No, sir. No one by that name in our system." I hung up feeling sick. Either I'd misunderstood which hospital she worked at, or Maria had been lying to me for months. When she came home 3 days later, I was ready. "Which hospital did you say you work at?" "St. Luke's." "Why?" "I called there. They don't have any record of you." Her face went pale, then flushed red. "You called my work? Jim, that's crazy. You're acting like a jealous husband." I was worried. "You disappeared for 3 days. I told you, emergency surgery. And maybe they didn't find my name because you pronounced it wrong. Or maybe the receptionist is new." "Maria, just tell me the truth. Do you actually work at St. Luke's?" "Of course I do. I can't believe you're questioning me like this." But she couldn't meet my eyes. And for the first time since I'd known her, I thought she might be lying. I hired a private investigator. It sounds paranoid, but I needed to know. His name was Carlos, a former police detective who specialized in domestic situations. Happens more than you'd think, he said when I explained my situation. Foreign men, Filipino women, money disappearing. Usually ends the same way. How does it usually end? Badly. For the foreigner. Carlos followed Maria for a week, while I pretended everything was normal. Cooked her breakfast, kissed her goodbye, told her I loved her, all while wondering if anything between us had ever been real. His report came in an email with photo attachments. Maria entering a house in Quezon City. Maria with a man who looked about my age, Filipino, well-dressed. Maria at a jewelry store, looking at rings. Maria at a bank, making what looked like a large deposit. She's been living a double life, Carlos explained when we met at a coffee shop in Balanga. The man is named Roberto Santos. They've been together for 5 years. Married, actually, 2 kids. The words hit me like a physical blow. Married? Certificate dated 2019. Kids are 8 and 6. But we're together. We bought a house. Sir, you bought a house. You furnished it. You've been paying for everything while she maintains 2 households. What about her mother? The medical bills? Her mother died 3 years ago. The money you've been sending for medical expenses has been going to support her real family. I sat there staring at the photos. Maria laughing with a man who wasn't me. Maria pushing a child on a swing. Maria wearing a gold wedding ring I'd never seen. How long have you known? I asked. Known what? That I was being played. You said it happens all the time. From the moment you walked into my office. The story is always the same. Lonely foreign man, beautiful Filipino woman, whirlwind romance, mysterious expenses. Then why didn't you warn me? Would you have listened? Or would you have convinced yourself your situation was different? He was right. I would have thought he was cynical, jealous, racist. I would have defended Maria and fired him on the spot. Love makes you stupid. And I'd been very stupid for a very long time. I didn't confront Maria immediately. Instead, I watched her. Really watched her. Noticed how she checked her phone constantly. How she showered immediately when she came home, like she was washing off evidence. How she'd started wearing perfume I'd never bought her. I'm thinking of going back to America for a visit, I said one evening. See my kids, take care of some business. That's a good idea, she said too quickly. How long would you be gone? Maybe a month. Would you miss me? Of course I'd miss you. But she looked relieved. When are you thinking of going? Soon. Maybe next week. So soon? Don't you need to plan? What's to plan? I have money. I have a passport. I'll just go. That night, she made love to me with more passion than she'd shown in weeks. Guilt sex, I realized. She was already planning how to spend my absence. The next morning I told her I'd changed my mind about the trip. Why? She asked, and I could see the disappointment in her eyes. I realized I don't want to leave you. This is my home now. You're my home. Jim, you should go. See your family. I'll be here when you get back. Will you? Because lately it feels like you're already gone. What do you mean? I mean you're never here. And when you are here, you're somewhere else in your head. I told you, work has been crazy. Maria, stop. I pulled out Carlos's report and set it on the table between us. I know about Roberto. I know about your kids. I know your mother is dead. She stared at the papers for a long time without speaking. When she finally looked up, her face was completely different. Harder. Like a mask had fallen away. How long have you known? Does it matter? I suppose not. She sat back in her chair, no longer pretending to be the woman I'd fallen in love with. Are you going to ask why? I already know why. You needed money. I had money. Simple as that. It wasn't supposed to go this far. You were supposed to visit once, maybe twice, send some money, go home. But I didn't go home. No. You moved here. You bought a house. You started talking about marriage. Did any of it mean anything to you? Any of it at all? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, You're a good man, Jim. You deserved better than this. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked, and I don't think you really want the answer. She was gone by the time I woke up the next morning. Not just gone from the house, but gone from my life. Her clothes, her toiletries, even the photos of us together, everything had vanished like she'd never existed. She'd left behind the furniture and appliances I'd bought, but taken anything that was personal, including my laptop, my iPad, and the cash I'd kept hidden in the bedroom drawer. I called Carlos. What do I do now? Legally? Nothing. You gave her access to your money willingly. You bought her gifts. No court in the Philippines is going to see this as theft. What about fraud? She lied about everything. Prove it. Prove you wouldn't have given her money if you'd known the truth. Prove the relationship wasn't consensual. But it was all fake. Was it? Did you have sex? Did you live together? Did she cook for you? Clean for you? Spend time with you? Yes, but then by legal standards, you were in a relationship. That she was married to someone else is unfortunate, but not criminal. I hung up feeling emptier than I'd ever felt in my life. Not just because of the money, though that hurt. Because of the time. The months I'd spent believing I was building something real. The plans I'd made, the future I'd imagined. I tried calling Maria one last time. The number was disconnected. I went to the hospital where she'd supposedly worked. They confirmed she'd never been employed there. I even drove to the house in Quezon City where Carlos had photographed her. A man answered the door, Roberto, her real husband. What do you want? He asked in broken English. I'm looking for Maria. Maria is my wife. You need to leave. She told me she was single. She lived with me for 6 months. He looked genuinely surprised, then angry. You lie. Maria works at hospital. Maria comes home every night. Does she? Because she was living with me in Bataan, in a house I bought for her. We stared at each other, two men who'd been played by the same woman. She told you she was single? He asked finally. She told me a lot of things that weren't true. Me too, he said quietly. Me too. I'm writing this from a small apartment in Balanga, the provincial capital. I sold the house in our town. I still think of it that way and moved closer to civilization. Not that it matters much. I have enough money left to live modestly for a few years if I'm careful. After that, I'll have to figure something else out. Maybe go back to Florida, tail between my legs. Maybe stay here and learn to live on what social security I can collect overseas. My kids have been calling more since they heard what happened. Dad, come home, Sarah said last week. We'll help you get back on your feet. We should have warned you, David added. We should have tried harder to stop you. But they couldn't have stopped me. When you're drowning in loneliness, any hand extended feels like salvation. You don't ask questions, you just grab on and hope. I don't hate Maria, that's what surprises me most. I should hate her. She stole from me, lied to me, made me feel like a fool. But mostly I feel sad. Sad for her, having to live that kind of double life. Sad for Roberto, who probably loved her as much as I thought I did. Sad for their kids, who have a mother capable of that kind of deception. And sad for me, because despite everything, I miss the woman I thought she was. I miss coming home to someone who seemed happy to see me. I miss having someone to cook for, to buy things for, to plan a future with. I miss feeling useful, important, needed. Even if it was all an act, it was a good act. Good enough to make me remember what it felt like to be alive. Some nights I lie awake wondering if there were moments that were real. When she cried after we made love, were any of those tears genuine? When she introduced me to her neighbors as her boyfriend, was there any pride in her voice? When she told me I made her feel safe, did she mean it, even for just a second? I'll never know. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not knowing if anything beautiful in your life was actually beautiful or just a well-constructed lie. The American expat community here knows my story by now. Word travels fast in small circles. Some of them pity me. Others judge me. A few have shared their own similar experiences. It's the culture. One bitter old-timer told me, family above everything else. You were just a means to an end. But I don't think it's that simple. I think Maria was trapped between two lives, two sets of obligations, two different versions of herself. I think she got in over her head and didn't know how to get out without destroying everything. I think she's probably as miserable as I am, in her own way. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it makes her human instead of a monster. And somehow, that makes it easier to bear. I've started volunteering at a local clinic, helping with basic maintenance work, fixing air conditioners, repairing equipment, painting walls. It doesn't pay anything, but it gives me a reason to get up in the morning. The staff there knows my story too, but they don't treat me like a victim. They treat me like someone who made a mistake and is trying to learn from it. Mr. Jim, one of the young doctors, said to me last week, "You helped that woman's family for 6 months. Her children had food, clothes, school supplies because of you. That's not nothing." But it was based on lies. So, the help was real. The money was real. The love you felt was real, even if hers wasn't. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on being deceived that I forgot I'd actually done some good. Maria's kids, Roberto's kids, had benefited from my stupidity. Maybe that counts for something. I'm learning Tagalog more seriously now. Not because I'm planning to stay forever, but because I want to understand this place better. Want to understand the culture that produced someone capable of living such a complex lie. Want to understand the economic pressures that make foreign men like me seem like opportunities instead of people. Kumusta ka? The vendor at the market asks me now. How are you? Okay, Lang, I reply, just okay. And that's true, I'm not great. I'm not terrible. I'm just okay. Some days I wake up angry. Angry at Maria for lying, at myself for believing, at a world that makes love feel so impossible that we'll take counterfeits just to remember what it's supposed to feel like. Other days I wake up grateful. Grateful that I tried. Grateful that I felt something real even if it wasn't returned. Grateful that I'm still here, still breathing, still capable of hope, even if I'm more careful with it now. Yesterday, a woman smiled at me in the grocery store, mid-40s Filipina, pretty in a quiet way. For just a moment I felt that old flutter of possibility. Then I remembered Maria's smile at the airport, how it had made me believe in fairy tales again. I smiled back politely and kept walking. I'm not ready yet. Maybe I never will be. But I'm learning that being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. I'm learning to enjoy my own company again. To find purpose that doesn't depend on someone else's validation. To build a life that's complete even if it's just me living it. The money is mostly gone. The dream is definitely over. But I'm still here, still figuring out what comes next. Still capable of kindness, even if I'm more careful about where I direct it. Maria taught me something important, even if she didn't mean to. She taught me that love is a choice you make every day, not just a feeling that happens to you. I chose to love her every day for 6 months. That choice was real, even if her feelings weren't, and I can choose to love again, when I'm ready. When I meet someone who chooses to love me back. Until then, I'll keep fixing air conditioners and learning Tagalog and watching sunsets from my small apartment balcony. I'll keep being okay. And maybe, someday, okay will be enough to build something real on. Something that doesn't need lies to hold it together. Something that can survive the truth.